Long ago, when the forests were thicker, the rivers ran deeper, and the animals spoke openly among themselves, the world was ruled not by wisdom, but by strength. The strongest creature in the land was the mighty Leopard. Leopard feared no animal. His claws were sharp as knives. His muscles rippled beneath his golden skin. His roar could silence an entire forest. When Leopard walked through the tall grass, every creature stepped aside. Monkeys climbed higher into the trees. Antelope ran. Birds stopped singing, and Leopard liked it that way. Because Leopard believed that strength made him king of the forest. But there was one creature who watched Leopard very carefully. A creature so small that many animals barely noticed him at all. That creature was Anansi the spider. Now, Anansi was not strong. He had no claws. He had no sharp teeth. And if a strong wind blew through the forest, Anansi could easily be carried away. But Anansi had something far more powerful than strength. He had a clever mind. And one day, as Anansi watched Leopard boasting loudly to the other animals, a mischievous idea began to grow in his mind. What if the smallest creature in the forest could fool the strongest? Anansi rubbed his tiny legs together and smiled, because the thought of tricking Leopard was simply too delicious to ignore. The next morning, the forest gathered round the great baobab tree. This was where animals met to settle disputes, exchange news, and sometimes simply to listen to Leopard boast about his strength. "I am the strongest creature in the forest," Leopard declared proudly. "No one can defeat me." The animals murmured nervously. None of them dared challenge him. But from somewhere near the roots of the baobab tree came a small voice. "Strength is not everything." All the animals turned, and there stood Anansi. Leopard lowered his great head and stared at the tiny spider. "You?" Leopard said with amusement. "You are smaller than my paw." "That may be true," Anansi replied calmly, "but I could defeat you." The forest fell silent. Some animals gasped. Others tried to hide their laughter. Leopard's whiskers twitched. "You defeat me?" he growled. "Yes," said Anansi defiantly. "Not with strength, with cleverness." Leopard laughed so loudly that birds flew from the nearby trees. "Very well," he said. "If you can defeat me, the entire forest will call you the cleverest creature alive. But if you fail," Leopard leaned closer, "you will become my dinner." Anansi pretended to think carefully. Then he nodded. "Agreed." The animals gathered in a wide circle to watch. Leopard stretched lazily on the ground. "So," Leopard said, "how will you defeat me?" Anansi pointed toward a thick vine hanging from a tree branch. "I challenge you to a simple test of strength." Leopard yawned. "Strength is my specialty." Anansi tied one end of the vine around Leopard's tail. Then he took the other end and disappeared into the bushes. Moments later, he returned, carrying a large drum. "What's the drum for?" Leopard asked. "It will signal the start of the contest," said Anansi. The animals watched curiously. Anansi beat the drum loudly. Boom, boom, boom. Pull with all your strength, Anansi shouted. Leopard pulled. The vine grew tight. Leopard dug his claws into the earth and pulled harder. But something on the other end pulled back. Leopard snarled and pulled with enormous force. The vine stretched. The ground trembled. But whoever or whatever was pulling on the other end was incredibly strong. Leopard roared with effort. I will not be defeated. What Leopard did not know was that Anansi had not tied the other end of the vine to himself. Instead, he had tied it to the trunk of a massive elephant who was drinking at the river on the other side of the forest. And Elephant believed he was competing in a strength contest as well, because Anansi had told Elephant the exact same story. Both animals pulled harder and harder. Leopard believed he was battling Anansi. Elephant believed he was battling Anansi. But in reality, they were pulling against each other. The forest shook with their effort. Birds flew away. Leaves fell from the trees. The other animals watched in amazement. Finally, Leopard collapsed, exhausted. Enough, he gasped. No creature could be this strong. Moments later, Elephant also stopped pulling. I admit defeat, Elephant called. Anansi is stronger than I imagined. Anansi returned calmly to the baobab tree. Leopard panted heavily on the ground. You defeated me, Leopard admitted reluctantly, but something bothered him. How can such a tiny creature be so strong? Anansi smiled. Oh, Leopard, he said. I never said I would defeat you with strength. I said I would defeat you with cleverness. At that moment, Elephant walked into the clearing, dragging the vine behind him. Leopard stared. Elephant stared. Slowly the truth became clear. Both of them had been pulling against each other, and the tiny spider had fooled them both. The animals burst into laughter. Even the monkeys nearby fell from their branches. Leopard's ears flattened in embarrassment. You tricked us, he said. Anansi bowed politely. Yes, but now the forest knows something important. Leopard narrows his eyes. What is that? Anansi climbed onto a rock so everyone could hear him. The smallest creature can defeat the strongest if he uses his mind. From that day forward, Leopard still remained strong. Elephant still remained powerful. But whenever they spoke proudly of their strength, the other animals would smile quietly, because they remembered the day when a tiny spider had fooled them all. And somewhere nearby, hidden among the leaves, Anansi would be listening, waiting, watching, and perhaps planning his next trick. If this story spoke to you, leave a like and subscribe so these African folktales continue to live on for the next generations. Until our next story, walk gently through the world, and may wisdom guide your path.